I'll call to order the February meeting of the Oxford Planning Commission. Commissioners, you have the agenda. Are there any changes or additions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes from the January meeting? All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Ben, any staff report tonight?
Nothing to report tonight.
Thank you, sir. Item number 5 on that is the consent agenda has been postponed, so that takes us to our first public hearing case, which is case number 3038. Lily Kubota has filed a request for a variance as provided in section 4.8.6.1, sidewalks for property located at 2141 Highway 30. Robert?
All right, subject property is about 7.3 acres located on the north side of Highway 30, just east from the Ed Perry Boulevard intersection. The property has two businesses located on it, Lily Kubota and Lily Farm and Ranch. The applicant is proposing modifications to the site. In addition to the Lily Kubota building, site plan is the next case. This request is for a variance from the sidewalk requirements as stipulated in section 4.861. This same request was heard as part of case 2998 in August and was denied at that time. The applicant has returned after the 6-month waiting period as established in section 943 of the variance section. The applicant states that the construction of the sidewalk on the right-of-way is not feasible due to the lack of NDOT permission and the significant slopes of the drainage ditch adjacent. They further contend that the construction of the sidewalk on the applicant's property would also not be feasible due to topography that would require the construction of retaining walls to meet the ADA slopes, and then to maintain a secure site, the existing fence would need to be relocated and a portion of the parking lot would have to be demolished. That would create an undue hardship on the applicant for limited public benefit due to the lack of any existing sidewalk infrastructure to connect to and no destinations for pedestrians at this time. The applicant went for the Pathways Commission on January 22nd, and Pathways was generally receptive of the request and agreed with the applicant that the variance would be appropriate in this instance. The commission identified the Highway 30 corridor as a rural arterial and noted that a multi-use path would be the appropriate pedestrian facility as specified in the LDC. Additionally, the commission stated that their position was only in reference to this proposal and that should this property redevelop, the need for sidewalks should be reevaluated at that time. And planning staff agrees with the applicant and the Pathways Commission. The applicant was denied for this request previously, but appears to have made a good faith effort to incorporate sidewalks, but has been unsuccessful due to the difficulties of the property. Engineering also had comments on this that echo that of the Pathways Commission. And the recommendation, the staff recommends approval of the requested variance with the condition that approval is for the plan as submitted. And
Thank you, Robert.
applicant's engineer is here.
Yeah, one question. I mean, you mentioned that should the property redevelop, so if a variance was granted, it would run with the use, but if there was a new use...
If there's a new use, then yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Anyone from the audience who'd like to speak on this case? All right. If there are no comments or questions, is there a motion on case number 3038 for the variance?
I would move that we approve subject to the staff condition.
I have a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? All right. The variance is granted. That takes us to case number 3039 at the same property. Lily Kubota has filed a request for site plan amendment for property located at 2142 Highway 30.
Same great property, same great dimensions. The primary structure will not change. The use is a retail use with outdoor sales, and the applicant proposes to construct an addition that would be used for storage and as a repair shop for the Kubota equipment, and those uses are allowed in the SEO district. There are 13 parking spots provided, 2 of which are going to be handicap accessible, and that will cover the retail patron area as well as employee parking for the shop. Other elements include landscaping, and landscaping plan is provided that indicates frontage trees, edge plantings, and a vegetative buffer. Foundation plantings are not indicated, and that would be required in a resubmittal prior to permitting. The existing building is clad with brick and metal siding. The applicant was approved in August 23 for the use of metal paneling for the addition. The front towards Highway 30 will use a knot wood cladding system over the metal panel to simulate wood grain. For access and sidewalks, the site takes access off of Highway 30 at a shared entrance with the Lily Farm and Ranch to the east, and you'll just approve the variance for the sidewalks. Some signage is indicated on the architectural elevations, though separate approval will be required to ensure compliance with the signage requirements of the LDC. And engineering provided comments related to access and sidewalk, water and sewer, and stormwater management. And staff recommends approval of the requested site plan with the 10 conditions that are listed in the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the commission? All right, any comment or question from the audience? Hearing none, is there a motion on case number 3039 for the site plan amendment?
I make a motion to approve with the following 10 staff conditions.
Motion to approve, subject to the 10 conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Moving on to case number 3041. Mitchell Stout has filed a request for a special exception as provided in section 3.8.14 vehicle repair or maintenance facility for property located at 2605A West Oxford Loop.
So the applicant requests a special exception for this property, which is zoned traditional neighborhood business. That's around 0.89 acres on West Oxford Loop. And the special exception is to locate an auto detailing business on the site. According to the applicant, the business would work on an average of 4 vehicles per day. This means that the standards is laid out in the code that the use is limited to service for personal light duty or medium duty vehicles, and also that the number of outside stored vehicles is limited to no more than 5 or 1 per service bay are going to be met just by having that limit. The application states that the vehicles will be stored inside the building until a final brief inspection before customer pickup to prevent accumulation of vehicles on the property. And they'll also have a policy that vehicles will not be left at the property before or after business hours. All of the washes, vacuums, all of that are proposed to be located inside the building. Staff finds that granting a special exception is appropriate in this instance as the application meets the standards provided by the Land Development Code for the exception, and recommends approval with 2 conditions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? I have one, just to double check. Was there any comment from the community in Woodlawn?
No, we haven't received any feedback, positive or negative.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Anyone from the audience wish to speak? All right, hearing none, is there a motion on case number 3041 for the special exception?
I'd move that we grant the special exception as noted with the 2 staff conditions.
There's a motion to approve the special exception subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Moving on. Case number 3042, Auger Design Studios has filed a request for special exception as provided in section 3.5.5.6 residential bonus for property located at 401 East Jackson Avenue. Ben?
Yeah, you may recall in December, the applicant appeared before the commission to appeal the planning director's interpretation for additional density through a variance request. Since that time, staff identified a provision in the Land Development Code, section 3.5.5.6, that does allow for a residential bonus to be requested by special exception for a mixed-use development. The subject property, as you might recall, is situated between the Courtyard Marriott and the location of Sammy's Gourmet, Gourmet Deli and Hero. The property measures about 0.27 acres and it's zoned traditional neighborhood business. It's currently undeveloped. And if you might also recall that the density limitation is in terms of bedrooms per acre, and TNB is 39 bedrooms per acre. So in this particular instance, the site is limited to 10 bedrooms. Applicant's proposal is for a mixed-use building. It's a 3-story building. And according to the narrative, it will consist of about 17,000, just a little bit more than 17,000 square feet. The ground floor is about 537 square feet of commercial space, with the remainder of it being used for parking, with 16 parking spaces and other ancillary uses, including this trash storage and riser room. and also a lobby with an elevator, and there's also a staircase there. Second and third floors consist of 3 residential units. It's two three-bedroom units and 1 2-bedroom unit on each floor, and the total square footage of each of those floors is about 5,751 square feet. This provision in section 3556 allows the Planning Commission to grant a special exception for additional density in a mixed-use development, and that's in the suburban multifamily TMB, SCN, and SCO districts of up to, but not more than 65 bedrooms per acre. Finding must be made that there are special conditions and circumstances that exist which are peculiar and which are not applicable to other land structures and or buildings in the same district. And this site, it is peculiar because it is small for a commercial property, and the west portion of the property is also encumbered by a parking easement for the hotel. As previously stated, this site is currently limited to 10 bedrooms, and this request will allow an additional 6 bedrooms, so 16 total on the site, which brings the density to about 60 bedrooms per acre within the thresholds of the code provision. And if the commission finds that the commercial element of the development sufficiently satisfies the mixed use intent of the land development code, then staff recommends approval of the request. Recommendation is should y'all find that that mixed use satisfies the requirements of section 3.556, then staff recommends approval with the conditions after making the finding that the small size of the property coupled with the parking easement on the west side of the property create a unique circumstance. In this instance, with the following conditions, the approvals for the plan is submitted with any necessary revisions determined by the Site Plan Review Committee. Number 2, that the requirement for the residential bonuses for a mixed-use building, if this is granted, then the building shall always have a mixed-use element to it. And 3, if the building, if building permits are not issued within 18 months, then this special exception shall expire.
Thank you, Ben.
You bet. I do see Mr. Augers in the audience, and so he can answer any questions that you have, and I'm happy to as well.
Sounds good. Questions from the commission?
Quick question. The parking, there's 16 spots and 16 bedrooms. Then there's a ground floor commercial. How's everybody gonna have a spot to park?
Corey, do you want to come answer that? How everybody's going to have a place to park? We do require 2 parking spaces for a 2 and a 3 bedroom unit, and then there's guest parking. Plus, then I think the commercial space would require one parking space.
Okay, are they're within spec?
So guest parking would be one guest space for each of the 3 bedroom units, and 1 guest space for the, one guest space for the 2 bedroom units. So I think that totals 18 parking spaces. They're indicating 16 parking spaces, so it's short. We still have to get through the site plan element of this, and so the condition, as it's noted, is there may be some revisions that are required. So if that's to identify some additional parking, or if parking, some of the things that trigger 18 parking spaces go away, then we'll have to work that out. So all that to say is, it seems like that parking would be determined in the site plan review phase. It could be 16, could be 18.
Okay.
You need
Or you have
If
anything
it
to add on
remains, I
there?
guess the question still stands. I mean, so what, if I was gonna rent space in that building, how would you explain to me as a potential leaseor or whatever, where am I gonna park? If I've got 16 bedrooms, 16 people are gonna rent those bedrooms, college kids don't share cars that I know of. Where's the commercial guy gonna park, and then people that come see him, if he has any customers?
Could you
Could you come
up here,
forward, please?
Thanks.
At this point, the number of parking spaces and the number of units and the number of beds are schematic, so that hasn't been worked out yet. So I don't have final floor plans. I've given a schematic and what I think is going to be the consolidation of space, but I don't know. The idea, though, commercial space with an office, that would be somebody like me who has a sole practitioner. I need 1 space. Somebody wants to come visit, they can use a guest parking space. That's what the guest parking spaces are for.
Okay.
The idea of mixed use is that daytime use and nighttime use might not be the same. So you would have daytime parking spaces for guest parking spaces at nighttime.
I guess it's premature to talk about, but I just don't see going forward how it's gonna work out. I mean, if you've got, you may answer it, but I didn't catch it. I mean, so if you got 16 people, 16 bedrooms, one commercial, so 16 spaces for those
But
16.
one space per bedroom is not the requirement for parking. You have guest parking spaces. And so those guests would be for the building and for the residential and the commercial in theory. The idea of mixed use is that daytime use and nighttime use would not be the same use. So the guest parking spaces during the day could be used for the commercial space, as well as nighttime space, while the commercial space is not operational in theory.
Yeah,
Theoretically speaking, it's gonna be all right, but realistically, probably not.
I understand your point, but I mean, I guess there's time to work through those issues going to site plan.
And I agree with staff report. We don't want to come back and ask for residential use on the ground floor. I mean, that's been done before, but I agree that that's not going to be something in our future. It's not feasible. The site's really encumbered. It's really small. It's really constrained.
Understood. I just don't want to get on the path that was gonna end up not having something at the end of it. That was primarily what I was concerned about.
Yeah, the site plan review process is going to have to flesh a lot of that out.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone from the audience wish to speak? All right. If there are no further questions, is there a motion on case number 3042 for the special exception?
I'll make a motion to approve the special exception subject to the 3 staff conditions.
There's a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, special exception is granted. Our next case is case number 3044. HHRE has filed a request for special exception as provided in section 5.5.4.2 Site Design Standards Screening for property located at 735 Belk Boulevard.
So the subject property on Belk Boulevard is the site of a future medical office building, which is currently under site plan review. The Land Development Code does require that any rooftop elements like HVAC, any of that stuff is screened by a parapet, but allows a special exception for a screen wall to be considered, which is what the applicant's requesting here. There are no special conditions listed that must be met in order for the special exception to be granted, other than, it notes that the screening element should be consistent with the design of the principal structure. The proposed screen wall is aluminum and louvered and does appear consistent with the design of the structure as required by the code. So staff is recommending approval of the special exception with 2 conditions that are standard for a special exception.
Thank you. Any questions?
We have not received any feedback.
No feedback?
Yeah.
All right, any questions or comments from the audience?
I got one question.
Sure.
Is there any reason structurally to have a parapet versus just screening? I mean, as far as noise, I mean, both seem to hide the mechanical equipment, but didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think structurally that there's any difference. I think these are design preferences that, people go down. It used to just be a parapet is required to be extended, and then we've modified it to allow for screen walls, because we've seen some other design options and locations of mechanical equipment that maybe weren't conducive to having a parapet, extended a parapet all the way around. So, I think we've moved forward to cautiously allow this. But the more times that we've had to use it, which is not that often, I think the more we feel better about it. So all that to say, I think at some point in the future, you might see that become maybe staff level approval.
Okay.
I think it's location based as well, like a parapet you expect to be flush with the elevation, like facade of the building, whereas a screen wall could be pushed back on the roof plan, and maybe you do want more flexibility to determine where that's going to be as staff, even if it's an admin approval, rather than just saying parapet or screen wall in the code.
But the aim,
People that have incorporated, if you remember specialty orthopedics, they actually incorporated a parapet like midpoint of the building that was integrated with the other parapet. So it kind of functioned like a screen wall, but it was actually integrated into the parapet. And so, you know, I mean, it works. You could have called that a screen wall too, but I mean, it was integrated, so.
but the intent of the ordinance is primarily visual.
Yeah, screen the stuff, yeah.
That's good.
All right. Any other questions? All right. If there are none, is there a motion on case number 3044 for the special exception for screening?
I'd move that we grant the special exceptions provided with the 2 staff conditions as noted.
All right. Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? All right. Any opposed? Our next case is case number 3045, The Grove at North Lamar. Okay. The Grove at North Lamar LLC has filed a request for a special exception as provided in section 2.6.7, first floor residential in a traditional neighborhood business district for property located at 1000 North Lamar Boulevard. And please let the record show that Commissioner Alexander is recusing himself.
Yeah, I think y'all are quite aware of this property. It's come before the commission, and I think you've seen it develop over the past, several years. The property is about 2.5 acres. It's at the Savannah Square development, and it's at the intersection of North Lamar and Pleasant Drive. The site previously housed local color and 2 detached dwellings, and the applicant was approved for a site plan amendment in March of 2023. The applicant's now before you for a special exception that allows ground floor residential. The site plan amendment approved in March was for a multi-story building with ground floor commercial. The applicant is seeking this to have 3 residential units on the ground floor, with the remainder of the building consisting of commercial uses. And the proposal indicates that slightly more than 50% of the ground floor of this building will consist of commercial uses. The location of the proposed commercial area is in a highly visible area, and it's an ideal location because of that visibility. Staff recommends approval of this request with the conditions, with the following conditions. Approval is for the plan as submitted. A site plan amendment is required, and then if building permits are not issued within 18 months, the special exception shall expire.
Thank you, Ben.
You bet.
Questions from the commission? All right. Questions or comments from the audience? If there are none, is there a motion on case number 3045 for the special exception?
I'll move to approve the special exception, subject to the 3 staff conditions.
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. The special exception is approved, and that takes us to our final case. Let the record show that Commissioner Alexander is rejoining. And that is case number 3046. The City of Oxford has filed a request for modifications to the Land Development Code. Ben?
You bet. Thank you. I think a few of you might remember when we went through the comprehensive rezoning for the city, we had some discussion points about some properties over near what is now Patterson Parkway and Anderson Road. This is even prior to Patterson Parkway being constructed, but there were some properties there, and we were looking at the zoning for it, and it was traditional neighborhood business. There were some concerns by the neighbors related to specific uses that ultimately we went down a path of modifying and creating a kind of an overlay district, kind of like we have TNR, we have neighborhood residential, and we have also TNR. Well, we created what's called Legacy TNB, and it's only for the properties on the north side of that intersection, kind of by like where north of Woodlawn Davis Park and where like F&B Bank is now, and then the gas station that's in the corner. Those are basically the limits of the property. I think there's a few properties maybe north of where the city limits were at that time. So the uses that were limited there were drive-through restaurants, liquor stores, I think restaurants that serve alcohol, and even service stations when they adjoin residential property. So we're back before you, and I'll also add that the Planning Commission at that time was not supportive of that overlay. I think that they wanted it to be just straight traditional neighborhood business. The Board of Aldermen ultimately moved forward with approving it as legacy traditional neighborhood business. So that being said, we're back before you after some discussion with the Ordinance Review Committee and the alderman for that ward and some property owners in that area, back before you with a modification to that legacy TNB district that would allow restaurants that serve alcoholic beverages and liquor stores to be requested by the Planning Commission as a special exception. So everything else would remain the same, but they could just come before you. So that's one proposal, that's one proposed change. Are there any questions on that?
Just to clarify for the commission, on changes to the ordinance, we're the recommending body.
That's right.
And the Board of Aldermen
you.
would approve it.
That's right.
Was there any talk of just getting rid of this limited designation of the legacy TNB and just making it a TNB district?
Recent discussions?
Yeah, I mean, does that?
There have not been any recent
thing?
discussions as to that.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
No.
Okay. The only other change is the section 3556 that we heard the special exception for this evening. We're adding a footnote to the applicable districts where that would actually apply. So there's a cross-reference to that particular section related to the density. So it's just kind of a housekeeping matter there. Otherwise, those are the only changes that we have.
All right. Any questions on those changes? Anybody from the audience wish to speak on this? Either of the changes? All right. If there's no further discussion, is there a motion on case number 3046 for the modifications to the Land Development Code?
Motion to approve the modifications.
Motion to approve the modifications. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right.
Thank you all.
Recommended for approval. Is there any other business to come before the commission?
Not this evening.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.